So today's video, I will be doing a short literature reading of Mal. His selected works called Opposed Book Worship in May 1930. I will also be doing very random triggers, super random triggers that I like. So let's get into it. Opposed book worship. Number 1. No investigation, no right to speak. Unless you have investigated a problem, you will be deprived of the right to speak on it. Isn't that too harsh? Not in the least. When you have not probed into a problem, into the present facts or its past history, and know nothing of its essentials, whatever you say about it will undoubtedly be nonsense. Talking nonsense solves no problems, as everyone knows, so why is it unjust to deprive me of the right to speak? Quite a few comrades always keep their eyes shut and talk nonsense, and for a communist that is disgraceful. How can a communist keep his eyes shut and talk nonsense? It won't do. It won't do. He must investigate. He must not talk nonsense. 2. To investigate a problem is to solve it. You can't solve a problem? Well, get down and investigate the present facts and its past history. When you have investigated the problem thoroughly, you will know how to solve it. Conclusions invariably come after investigation and not before. Only a blockhead cudgels his brain on his own, or together with a group, to find solution or evolve an idea without making any investigation. It must be stressed that this cannot possibly lead to any effective solution or any good idea. In other words, he is bound to arrive at a wrong solution and a wrong idea. There are not a few comrades doing inspection work, as well as guerrilla leaders and cadres newly in office, who like to make political pronouncements the moment they arrive at a place, and who strut about criticizing this and condemning that when they have only seen the surface of things or minor details. Such poorly subjective nonsensical talk is indeed detestable. These people are bound to make a mess of things, lose the confidence of the masses, and prove incapable of solving any problem at all. When they come across difficult problems, quite a number of people in leading positions simply heave a sigh without being able to solve them. They lose patience and ask to be transferred on the ground that they have not the ability and cannot do the job. These are cowards' words. Just get moving on your 2 legs. Go the round of every section placed under your charge and inquire into everything, as Confucius did, and then you are able to solve the problems. However little is your ability, for although your head may be empty before you go out of doors, it will be empty no longer when you return, but will contain all sorts of material necessary for the solution of the problems, and that is how problems are solved. Must you go out of doors? Not necessarily. You can call a fact-finding meeting of people familiar with the situation in order to get to the source of what you call a difficult problem and come to know how it stands now, and then it will be easy to solve very difficult problems. Investigation may be likened to the long months of pregnancy solving a problem to the day of birth. To investigate a problem is indeed to solve it. Number 3, oppose book worship. Whatever is written in a book is right. Such is still the mentality of cultural backward Chinese peasants. Strangely enough, within the Communist Party, there are also people who always say in a discussion, "Show me where it's written in the book." When we say that a directive of a higher organ of leadership is correct, that is not just because it comes from a higher organ of leadership, but because its contents conform with both the objective and subjective circumstances of the struggle and meet its requirements. It is quite wrong to take a formalistic attitude and blindly carry out directives without discussing and examining them in the light of actual conditions simply because they came from higher organ. It is the mischief done by this formalism which explains why the lines and tactics of the party do not take deeper root among the masses. To carry out a directive of a higher organ blindly and seemingly without any disagreement is not really to carry it out, but it is the most artful way of opposing or sabotaging it. The method of studying the social sciences exclusively from the book is likewise extremely dangerous and may even lead onto the road of counter-revolution. Clear proof of this is provided by the fact that whole batches of Chinese communists who confined themselves to the books in their study of social sciences have turned into counter-revolutionaries. When we say Marxism is correct, it is certainly not because Marx was a prophet, but because his theory has been proved correct in our practice and in our struggle. We need Marxism in our struggle. In our acceptance of his theory, no such formalization of mystical notion as that of purposey ever enters our mind. Many who have read Marxist books have become renegades from the revolution, whereas illiterate workers often grasp Marxism very well. Of course, we should study Marxist books, but this study must be integrated with our country's actual conditions. We need books, but we must overcome book worship, which is divorced from the actual situation. How can we overcome book worship? The only way is to investigate the actual situation. Without investigating the actual situation, there is bound to be an idealist appraisal of class forces and an idealist guidance in work resulting either in opportunism or in PUTSCHISM. Do you doubt this conclusion? Facts will force you to accept it. Just try and appraise the political situation or guide the struggle without making any investigation, and you will see whether or not such appraisal or guidance is groundless and idealist, and whether or not it will lead to opportunist or PUTSCHIST errors. Certainly it will. This is not because of a failure to make careful plans before taking action, but because of a failure to study the specific social situation carefully before making the plans, as often happens in our Red Army guerrilla units. Officers of the Li Kuei type do not discriminate when they punish the men for offenses. As a result, the offenders feel they have been unfairly treated. Many disputes ensue, and the leaders lose all prestige. Does this not happen frequently in the Red Army? We must wipe out idealism and guard against all opportunist and PUTSCHIST errors before we can succeed in winning over the masses and defeating the enemy. The only way to wipe out idealism is to make the effort and investigate the actual situation. 5. The aim of social and economic investigation is to arrive at a correct appraisal of class forces and then to formulate the correct tactics for the struggle. This is the answer to the question, why do we have to investigate the social and economic conditions? Accordingly, the object of our investigation is all the social classes and not fragmentary social phenomena. Of late, the comrades in the 4th Army of the Red Army have genuinely given attention to the work of investigation, but the method many of them employ is wrong. The results of their investigation are therefore as trivial as a Grace's account, or resemble the many strange tales of a country bumpkin hears when he comes to town, or like a distant view of a populous city from a mountaintop. This kind of investigation is of little use and cannot achieve our main purpose. Our main purpose is to learn the political and economic situation of the various social classes. The outcome of our investigation should be a picture of the present situation of each class and the ups and downs of its development. For example, when we investigate the composition of the peasantry, not only must we know the number of owner peasants, semi-owner peasants, and tenant peasants, who are differentiated according to tenancy relationships, but more especially, we must know the number of rich peasants, middle peasants, and poor peasants who are differentiated according to class or stratum. When we investigate the composition of the merchants, not only must we know the number in each trade, such as grains, clothing, medicinal herbs, etc., but more especially, we must know the number of small merchants, middle merchants, and big merchants. We should investigate not only the state of each trade, but more especially the class relations within it. We should investigate the relationships not only between the different trades, but more especially between the different classes. Our chief method of investigation must be to dissect the different social classes, the ultimate purpose being to understand their interrelations, to arrive at a correct appraisal of class forces, and then to formulate the correct tactics for the struggle, defining which classes constitute the main force in the revolutionary struggle, which classes are to be won over as allies, and which classes are to be overthrown. This is our sole purpose. What are the social classes requiring investigation? They are the industrial proletariat, the handicraft workers, the farm laborers, the poor peasants, the urban poor, the lumpen proletariat, the master handicraftsmen, the small merchants, the middle peasants, the rich peasants,